This is an excerpt from my paper, Skeletons of a CTMU Unified Field Theory. This will be published in a book in the next year or so as a collection of papers exploring and defending the CTMU. You can find the paper linked in the description below. By the metaphysical ontology principle, MAP, which says that the real universe is a closed descriptive manifold outside of which nothing can relate to reality, saying, tautologically, that reality contains all and only that which is real, implying that the real universe must be self-creating, self-sustaining, self-contained, and self-explanatory. This connects with the late Stephen Hawking's no-boundary proposal, which says that the universe is completely self-contained and that there is nothing outside the universe. The boundary conditions of the universe are that there is no boundary. Hawking uses imaginary time, a generalization of time expressed in terms of imaginary numbers such as the square root of -1, I. Special relativity space-time is typically mathematically represented as d squared equals x squared plus y squared plus z squared minus t squared, which is equal to d squared equals x squared plus y squared plus z squared plus I t squared, because it becomes -1, so we flip it, and allows us to treat imaginary time, it, as a positive fourth spatial dimension. The main application of imaginary time to a previously undecidable problem is that of the origin of time and space themselves. Imaginary time smooths out what appears as gravitational singularities in ordinary time, including the Big Bang, allowing us to treat it in the same way as any other point in four-dimensional space-time. This is reminiscent of the cosmological principle, or super-Copernican principle, which says that there is no special point in space and time, and that the extended superposition principle in the CTMU, which, quote, makes cosmogony a distributed, coherent, ongoing event rather than a spent and discarded moment from the ancient history of the cosmos. This is achieved by distributing the singularity in ordinary time over every point in space and time. Therefore, the universe has no inception or boundary and can properly be described as self-contained and self-explanatory. The imaginary time intrinsic cosmology also resolves the problem of ex nihilo cosmogony, how the universe emerges out of nothingness, by making the universe a self-collapsing quantum wave function which retrodites its own existence, transforming the point particles of statistical mechanics into quantum harmonic oscillators, quantized as tertiary syntactors/syntactic operators in the CTMU, which are excitations of quantum fields. After the universe's inception, it evolves according to fixed laws, for which Hawking does not offer an explanation. Despite the profundity and vision of Hawking's intrinsic cosmology idea, it falls short because it only uses the terminal domain LO/T as an explanation for the inception of the universe or its laws. It is for this reason that Chris Langan describes the CTMU as, quote, a cross between John Archibald Wheeler's participatory universe and the Stephen Hawking James Hartle imaginary time theory of cosmology, because it defines the boundary conditions of the universe as ones of self-creation through the observer participancy of secondary tellers, and the inception of the laws through the universal distributed form of SCSPL syntactic operators containing within themselves the syntactic rules by which they internally process each other to create new states of physical reality, and thus the emergence of laws and states in coupling with the unfolding teleology of the universe, rather than one deterministically causing the other. Langan completes Hawking's no-boundary proposal by showing that the initial, timeless state of the universe is a coherent quantum wave function, unbound telesis, which decoheres through retrocausal telic recursion in metatime, and that the universe has an intrinsic background against which it evolves. Chris Langan writes, quote, CTMU monism says that the universe creates of one dual-aspect substance, infocognition, created by internal feedback within an even more basic one-aspect substance called telesis. The universe is thus quantized in terms of a protean metasubstance defined on its ability to create itself and to generate conspansive spacetime. In the CTMU, reality's fundamental stuff is not matter, energy, or information, but instead telesis, which combines the intentions of the GOD and its sensor controllers with energy and information. The CTMU calls this telesis because it is evolving towards a teleology, from the Greek telos, for end or purpose. Telesis self-replicates and self-selects to choose the most utile configurations of itself, adjusting on the fly to a self-optimative metric called generalized utility, and thus refines itself by cross-definition of laws and states from its primordial state of unbound telesis, or the coherent cosmic wave functions, so that it can fortify and renew its identity. The CTMU thus inaugurates a new meaning of life, the universe, and everything. This generalized utility, which is equivalent to the universe's intrinsic need for self-fulfillment and self-identification. With respect to meaningful content, the universe remains steady in the process of self-creation. The real universe self-simulation of the unfolding teleology of the God through the ontic medium of telesis. In his popular interview with the MSCS Media podcast, Chris Langan says, quote, "The universe is constantly creating. It's in the process of creation. It's constantly looking for opportunities to nucleate itself. It's a potential. It wants to self-actualize, so it's constantly looking for things around which it can self-actualize. Telesis consists of future realities, possible futures. The CTMU thus adjoins to Hawking's no-boundary proposal, a mechanism for the self-creation and self-evolution of the universe according to the will of the primary teller, thus God, defined in terms of a primary state of ontic potential from which the universe self-selects and optimizes for generalized utility over time. The universe retrodites itself using telic recursion to actualize a timeline which leads to its self-emergence and self-organization." Regarding the cosmological features of its CTMU universe and the necessary revision of basic physical concepts like time and space, Langan writes, "Space, once a featureless medium aimlessly proliferating through cosmic expansion, becomes a distributed syntactic structure, iteratively reborn of matter and subject to a conspansive evacuation and rescaling. Time, previously envisioned as a quasi-spatial linear dimension along which the cosmos hurtles like a runaway locomotive, becomes the means by which the universe self-configures, an SCSPL grammatical symphony of logico-linguistic transformations played by the self-creating cosmos." In his inaugural paper on relativity, Albert Einstein writes of the possibility of a finite yet unbounded universe as one of the considerations on the universe as a whole based on the special and general theories of relativity. Along these lines, Chris Langan writes, it makes perfect sense to speak of an infinite but closed universe, and of a Big Bang and Big Crunch, which may be infinitely far away in the past and future, and yet identically distributed over time. Chris Langan writes, "By the way, eternity must be treated like infinity. It lasts long enough to encompass any discrete HSCS syntaxified process, but is instantaneous at the eidentic level of reality. In fact, time and space as we know them arise only as artifacts of metasyntactic restriction. Without the attending inductive stratification, the universe is an atemporal, instantaneous flash of parallel self-differentiation." In the words of the great German philosopher George Hegel, "The chalice of this realm of spirits foams forth to God his own infinitude, from infinity to infinity, and beyond. Let the light shine forth in the darkness, and the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you." Link, subscribe. Peace.